Hello. In this video we're going to talk about this nice little article I discovered on the internet, and it's called All the Palestinians, and it refers to several well-known facts that have occurred during the years, and all these are well-known, and you can look them up at Google if you don't believe me. And well, before we start describing the article, just want to say that there was never a people called Palestine. A country called Palestine never existed, actually. And these are just mercenaries of Saudi Arabia and Iran. The name Palestine comes from a pirate people who arrived. There were the sea peoples who raided parts of the eastern Mediterranean. And they captured several cities on the Phoenician coast. And these people were finally defeated by the ancient Jews, and they died about in roughly 700 BC. And then, 1,400 years later, Arab invaders arrived out of Saudi Arabia, and that was one part of the Arabs that call themselves Palestinians today. And then, in the late 19th century, the Turks brought several Arabs from Algeria, Saudi Arabia, Lebanon, Syria, and they planted them there because the Jews were starting to do the Aliyah in the late 19th century, and that's returning home. So in order to counter that, the Turks brought all these Arabs in, and the British mandate actually continued that policy of bringing Arabs in, just to counter the Israelis. And when the 1948 war broke out, it was 600,000 native Jews, some 100,000 Christians of various denominations, and there were 1,100,000 Pseudo-Palestinians. Pseudo-Palestinians because there's never been such a state. Right, so the article, let's start with the article now. Just which Palestinians are you talking about? The Palestinians who in 1948 fled their homes to neighbouring countries when the Arab world attacked Israel and told the Palestinians they can return after Israel is destroyed, and it's Jordan's fault that they lost the West Bank, that the Palestinians lost the West Bank. Now all the Palestinians who live in the West Bank under Jordanian occupation and annexation, and when Jordan attacked Israel in 1967, along with the other countries, and lost both the war and the West Bank to Israel. All the Palestinians who, while living in Jordan in the 1970s, envisioned Jordan becoming their Palestinian state and started a civil war, where King Hussein ultimately killed thousands of Palestinians and forcibly removed many of them from his country, making them refugees. So the article is talking about the Black September, when Yasser Arafat tried to overthrow King Hussein, and they tried to take over the country because there were millions of Jordanians living in the puppet state called Jordan, and they failed to do so. All the Palestinians who entered the Olympic Village in Munich, Germany, and murdered 11 Israeli athletes. So, in Munich, the Palestinians were collaborating with East German communists, and during the fight, a German police officer was killed. And killing a police officer, that means that you're attacking the state of Germany, of Western Germany. Well, the Palestinians who infiltrated a high school in Malot, Israel, and took 102 students hostage, injured 15, and murdered 22. Well, the Palestinians who, amongst others, hijacked an Air France jetliner to Uganda and held hostage more than 100 Israelis. All the Palestinians who were exiled from Jordan to a peaceful Lebanon and started a civil war that cost more than 120,000 lives and created more refugees, with many exiled from Lebanon. So when Yasser Arafat, when he failed to overthrow King Hussein of Jordan, he turned to Lebanon. And in Lebanon he started cooperating with communists. So that explains why many communists are pro-Palestinian, Lebanese communists, and the Shiite terrorists who soon evolved into Hezbollah, a state which is a state within a state, a terrorist state, who sell drugs and prostitution, and they murder thousands. And during the 1975-1990 Civil War, thousands of Christians were either murdered or exiled, or crippled. And they used it as a base to attack northern Israel. So all the Palestinians who hijacked the Achille Lauro ocean liner and shot, murdered and threw overboard Leo Kilhofer, a 69-year-old Jewish American paramedic in a wheelchair. All the Palestinians in the Abu Nidal organization who murdered an estimated 600 Palestinians from rival factions. Now the article fails to inform us that Abu Nidal also killed Jordanians, Saudi Arabians, Brits, people from Britain, even Spanish-speaking people, Greeks, Italians. And this evil Abu Nidal guy was finally murdered by Saddam Hussein in roughly 2000, in the early 2000s. All the Palestinians who wrote and lived by the Hamas Charter states, among other things, Israel will rise and will remain erect until Islam eliminates it as it has eliminated its predecessors. All the Palestinians who enticed young and susceptible Palestinians to become suicide bombers with the promise that when they murder Israelis, they will receive rich rewards in the afterlife and financial security for their families. So you see, the Hamas government actually pays the widows of the guy who blows himself up in a restaurant or a bus. His family receives a monthly paycheck. And of course, that's Al-Qaeda talking. All these murders, that's Al-Qaeda. The Palestinians are Al-Qaeda. You support the Palestinians, you're supporting Al-Qaeda. All the thousands of Palestinians in Ramla who cheered as the bodies of 2 Israeli soldiers were thrown from a second-story window after they were tortured and hacked to death. And that was just 10 years ago. And that's part of the Oslo Accords. The Oslo Accords. Yitzhak Rabin and Shimon Peres are to blame for this. All the Palestinians have honoured a suicide bomber with a military funeral for murdering 15 people, including 7 children and 5 from one family at the Sbarro Pizza Cafe in Jerusalem. All the thousands of Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza captured on video showing as 2 airliners purposely crashed into the Twin Towers on 9/11. So once again, we see that the Palestinians of Fatah and Hamas are nothing else but Al-Qaeda. We're talking Al-Qaeda here. So the little commies who support the PLO are supporting Al-Qaeda. Or perhaps they don't know it. Or perhaps they do. Or the Palestinian families who received $25,000 from Saddam Hussein for the children's successful suicide bombings. And you know, several commies, socialists, who didn't want America to invade Iraq. So again, they were supporting Al-Qaeda. Or a Palestinian like Yasser Arafat, although he was Egyptian-born, who became a billionaire by stealing money from other Palestinians as they lived in squalor. Or the Qatari-born, Egyptian-raised Omar Baghouti, who founded the boycott divestment, including educational sanctions, BDS movement against Israel, while getting his doctorate at an Israeli university. Well, I didn't see him return his degree. Or the Palestinians from Hamas, a group the US and other countries label as a terrorist organization, who, when they took control of Gaza, shot several hundred Fatah Palestinians in the legs, purposely crippling them for life. And they also killed 165 of their own people, because they were rivals. And there were several executions since the 2007 coup. Right, more than 100 Palestinians from Fatah, crippled by Palestinians from Hamas, who at a confidential request from Mahmoud Abbas to Shimon Peres received new legs and rehabilitation at a medical centre in Israel. All the 2 Palestinians who proudly confessed to the knife attack and murdered 5 members of the Fogel family, including the father, mother, and 3 of their 6 children, ages 11, 4, and 3 months. Or the Palestinian mother, Raida Abu Mustafa, whose baby's life was saved through funding and a rare heart operation by a Jewish doctor at an Israeli hospital. Yet the mother dreamed that her daughter would one day become a martyr. Why am I not surprised by these Al-Qaeda people? And the West, several groups in the West support these Al-Qaeda type, Fatah, Hamas. Or the gay Palestinian who, while living in Tel Aviv, considered one of the gay-friendliest cities in the world, pleaded with the Israel High Court not to be deported to the West Bank because it would lead to persecution by his family and his detention, torture and death by Palestinian security forces. That's the Oslo Accords again for you. Or the Palestinians in the West Bank who in 2013 committed 27 honour killings against their wives, sisters and daughters. And Erdogan's Turkey is following suit. Now Erdogan is trying to, and his friends are trying to turn Turkey into an Islamic state, and they're killing wives and daughters as well. That's Al-Qaeda for you. All the Palestinians since childhood have been educated by books and newspapers that claim that Jews are subhuman, satanic and animals, and that Israel is the root of all their problems. Or the Palestinians who grew up in refugee camps while in Saudi Arabia, Libya, Jordan, Iraq, Syria, Kuwait became some of the wealthiest countries in the world, gave virtually nothing to help the Palestinians and have purposely kept them in refugee camps as political tools since 1948. Like the Assad's father and son have killed thousands of Palestinians, and so did the Christian Lebanese, and no one talks about that. Now the classical example is Jordan, where in Jordan the Palestinians are even more numerous than the Jordanians, and yet the Jordanians gave the Palestinians a sort of passport, but still they're considered to be refugees and they keep them in camps, and they have no rights apart from Queen Rania, and they treat them as animals, and of course no one talks about that. So when Israel tries to defend itself from terrorists, oh, and then the little leftists, they start talking, they start shouting against Israel. But they didn't say anything about Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Libya, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon. Right. All the Palestinians who for decades promoted terrorism against Israel, forcing Israel to build a security wall that virtually ended all suicide bombings, and they call it, and they have the nerve to call it an apartheid war. Or the Palestinians who, after the Israeli voluntary surrender of the Gaza Strip in 2005, Ariel Sharon withdrew 8,000 Jewish citizens from one of their cities, Gaza, and they turned it into an Al-Qaeda state. Right, in 2007, and they have fired more than 11,000 rockets at Israel, killing Israelis and causing thousands of injuries. Or the Palestinians who, since the Oslo Accords, and that was treason caused by Yitzhak Rabin and Shimon Peres, was signed in 1993, have committed thousands of terrorist acts, not including rocket attacks from Gaza, murdering 1,472 Israelis. Or the Palestinians from Hamas who kidnapped and murdered 3 Jewish yeshiva Torah students. Right, and we all know how that happened, right? So when Eyal, Naftali and Gilad were returning from the religious school in the West Bank, somewhere in a village in the West Bank, they wanted to hitchhike home because there were no buses. And all of a sudden these terrorists arrive and they cut them to pieces and they throw their bodies in an open field. And that is what caused the recent war, the summer of 2014 war between Israel and Hamas. Right. Israel tried to arrest several Hamas people. Oh, of course, they followed the unity government between Hamas and Fatah, and that's what caused the rockets to be fired from Gaza into Israel proper, and the 3 students to be murdered by terrorists. And of course, no one talks about that. Sadly, Israel has recently lost 63 of its finest soldiers. 2 more civilians were killed, and a Thai worker was killed, guy from Thailand. Or the Palestinians who denounced Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas because he condemned the kidnapping and murder of the 3 Jewish teens. Or the Palestinian mother of Abu Ayyasha, one of the suspect murders of the 3 Israeli teens, who said, "If he truly did it, I'll be proud of him till my final days. I raised my children on the knees of the Islamic religion. The goal is to bring the victory to Islam." Right. Or the Palestinian father of 17-year-old Mohammed Kadir, who apparently murdered in retaliation for the 3 yeshiva boys, who said, "Whether Jew or Arab, Who would accept that his son or daughter would be kidnapped and killed? And you want Israel to stop the bloodshed. And recently, the Pseudo-Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, they have destroyed this ancient Greek site called Amphivona, and they have built rocket sites on top of the ancient columns and the ancient mosaics. And no one talks about that. They recently attacked and damaged the Church of Nativity in Bethlehem, a big Byzantine Christian site, one of the most important ones. And no one talks about that. They held hundreds of tourists as hostages. No one talks about that. And Mahmoud Abbas has made several funny statements, such as Jesus was a Palestinian, King David was a Palestinian, the Canaanites who lived there were Palestinians. Mahmoud Abbas, who has his millions of dollars in Ramla, claimed that the Holocaust never occurred. Well, later on, when the unity government took place a few months ago, he said, well, it did take place, and then he forgot about it, and then he went back on his word. Many of the people of Hamas consider Mahmoud Abbas to be a traitor, and in fact he doesn't really differ from them. And let's not forget that Ismail Haniyeh's granddaughters, all go to Israeli hospitals and get free treatments. Let's not forget that even while the war is raging, Israel is providing Gaza with food, water, electricity, and what they get is rockets in return. What should occur is Meir Kahana's dream. Meir Kahana's dream is that all the Pseudo-Palestinians should leave the West Bank and Gaza and go to Jordan. Because Jordan was a legal state. Most of the people there are Palestinians anyway. They've got a queen, Rania, and they should live there. And Jordan has become a Palestinian state, and they should leave Gaza and the West Bank alone. Okay. And this article doesn't cover 1,000 or 1,000 part of what the crimes that the Pseudo-Palestinians have committed through all these years. And still there's this vicious propaganda against Israel, and not a word against the Palestinians. And it's not only the commies who are backing them. There are several Asians in the UN. And there are the Saudis, and there's Iran, there's Qatar, who are sending millions of dollars into Gaza and the West Bank. So when this war will be over, Hamas and Israel, the Palestinians are still going to get their millions from Saudi Arabia. So no sweat. So even if they suffer some casualties, still they're going to get their millions from Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Iran, Turkey. So that's what the war's all about, money. Petrodollars from Saudi Arabia. King Abdullah is at it again. The Palestinians are nothing but thugs of Saudi Arabia, Qatar and Iran. And everyone knows this. Everyone knows why the war has been arranged. Petrodollars.